I'd like to think the whole point about British identity is that no one really knows what it is. And the British, and English especially, are always agonising over who they are. Even though we have this history and all this culture, it's still not clear to us, especially English people, what their role is in the world or who they are necessarily. But it fascinates me, the identity. I think always have been, maybe. Yeah, I suppose I'm interested in these questions, obviously, because I'm here, so it affects me. And I'm an expert at it, as is everyone that lives in Britain is an expert at being British, or whatever it means, but it's also very personal. So it's big and it's small at the same time. But through art, you can try and make investigations. My name is Jeremy Della, and I'm a visual artist, and I live in London and work in London. And there's a motorbike. I fucking hate people on noisy motorbikes. I'm not a painter. I don't draw, I don't paint, I don't make sculptures. But I do more or less everything else, which can mean music, events, graphic work, exhibitions, films, performances, just sort of things in the world. So I try and do whatever I can, whatever's available to me, and whatever medium is available or appropriate. So it can be many things. So it can be a very small thing, or a little idea, or it can be a mass group performance with thousands of people. And I have a kind of very varied career. It's quite unusual, I think. The thing that people would not know me for so much, but would be something that's very identifiable, and people would, if anyone asked me, "Oh, you're an artist, what do you do?" And I could tell them all these things I did, and they wouldn't know it. And I said, "Well, I work with Arsenal Football Club." They would understand that in the stadium. So I've helped make some of the exterior images on the stadium, these huge banners basically, and help with the process as well, which was very fan-based. The fans were like really taken into account at really all the stages, I would say, and also their world, and they are literally reflected back in the work itself. Because it'd be crazy to make artwork for an exterior of a building, but it's basically run by fans effectively, and it'd be crazy not to think about them and put them at the center of the process. I suppose I work with groups of people and communities. I do it because you can't get things done if you don't work with people. You have to have some level of cooperation. If you want to do a public art project, you have to work with the public. And if you want to get something done that's in the public realm and so on, I think it just totally makes sense. And so I do work with groups of people, and I like that. I like the sort of uncertainty of it, and the sort of not dangers as such, or risks even, but just the whole atmosphere of doing that and what that means, and how work can change because the public change it. I like all those things. I'm not afraid of the public, and I'm quite happy to meet and work with them. And I have to play to my strengths, because I'm not a technically accomplished person. My strengths are elsewhere. Maybe my strengths are having ideas to work with and for the public. I have zero technical ability. I can't do DIY, I can't do anything that's practical at all. So, but I work with people who can draw and who can make things. So that's how I work, really. I work with people that can do things often. So maybe it's more like the way a film director works, in that you have to rely on other people's skills and their abilities to make something happen. So it's a more directorial role sometimes. Warning graphic content is a sort of print retrospective. It's more or less every print I've made or poster I've made in the last literally 30 years now. And it's about 120 works, just plastered up almost. It seems just put up on a wall, on walls in a space. And the walls are colour, because I think I like coloured walls when you're looking at things. I find white a very oppressive colour in galleries, personally, so I'd like to take the edge off. In a sense, a little bit, it's a sort of history of Britain, a little bit. I wouldn't say massively, just because a lot of the works are reactive to what was going on at the time over the years. So in a sense, they tell a story about the country, but also maybe what I've been up to as well. You store up memories and you store up thoughts about society, and maybe later they reveal themselves to you. I mean, I hated the 80s, almost everything about it. I didn't really enjoy it as a decade. It wasn't really an enjoyable time. The country was in a horrible situation. And in the middle of the decade, more or less, there was a huge strike by the mining union, which tore the country apart. But that was something that I saw and witnessed on TV, and that was something I came back to 10 years later, something that I revisited, or more than 10 years later. So you don't really know in a sense, what you're going to be interested in. But you're just absorbing stuff. I suppose that's the thing. You want to be aware. And of course now there's so much going on now. It's almost too much happening, it feels. The show I did in Venice was called English Magic. It was very important to create an exhibition for Venice that was very specifically about, it was not like an international artwork, in inverted commas. It was actually a very specific work about Britain or about England, but it was about England's role in the world. So in a way it was international, but it was looking at specific moments in recent history and almost making like a mythical stories around them, or depicting them as mythical events. They're very current things, very modern things, but actually I was going back deep in time to sort of to create a connection. So with, there are events like Prince Harry killing a rare bird, or two rare birds, or him and a friend going shooting and killing these rare birds. A story about Roman Abramovich. That's not about England, but it sort of is really, because of the way that Britain has sort of welcomed corrupt Russians with open arms for the last 20 years, and now we're paying the price for that. So it was about national mythology, really. So the inflatable Stone Henge is an example. That's a work about national identity, but in a very, very funny, playful way, apparently. But it was really about Britain and Britain's place in the world. I mean, Stonehenge it's the logo for the country almost. It's the most famous building in Britain, and it's a ruin, effectively. Or it's not complete, obviously. So it's an incomplete building in the way that the pyramids are not incomplete. They're more or less intact compared to Stonehenge. And I felt that it's this mystery. So it's the structure that defines the country almost. It's the logo for the country, but it's a mystery at the same time. And I like the kind of the look of it. It always reminds me of like bad English teeth as well. You know, I made a T-shirt saying that Stone Henge English teeth because it is like someone's mouth. But it's a national obsession. I would say every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks in Britain, there's a story about Stone Henge. It's the most contemporary building in Britain because there's always speculation. There's always something happening there. Someone says something. It's continually on our minds more than any other building or structure. So it's the most famous, mysterious, open-ended structure in Britain. And it's kind of like a piece of art as well. So there's so much there. As a younger person, music was how I kind of interpreted the world through music. It was the window into the world, or the door that I walked through. And it's a kind of very clumsy metaphor, but music was the door or the window or whatever. And so that was really important. And I think that's the same for a lot of people in Britain. Popular music and looking at it on TV and listening to it on the radio was everything. And so for me, it was something that I was very interested in and remain interested in, but not to the extent I was. But so I'm quite happy to make art about that subject, or I was, and now, you know, films now. So I've made 2 films about music.
Your own personal Jesus.
Our hobby is Depeche Mode. It's a film I made with my friend Nick Abrahams, who's a filmmaker, and we made a film about the fan base of Depeche Mode, the band, their fans around the world.
They help us to live. They help us to stay, to survive, to stay ourselves. They are more than just a band for us.
Their massive appeal in Eastern Europe and Russia. So a lot of the film was shot in Russia, and which was 2006. Which was great going there and filming these fans and all the archive from the early 90s and so on. It was really great experience. So I'm very fond of the film, even if the band weren't, or some people were not. We were very fond of it. And it's a kind of film that you don't have to like the band to like the film. So I think, because it's not really about the band as such, it's about music and this power of music, the transformational power of music. There's another film called Everybody in the Place, which is a film about dance music in the mid to late 80s in Britain and its relationship to history, and its relationship to society and how actually it changed society. And society was never the same after this music, and how it sort of was a catalyst to change effectively into history. Obviously, it was a moment when I was young, and so it was very special, as we all had that, don't we? A certain moment in time of music, it just means everything to you. And so that was one of those moments. So, but it's a film describing, with me basically giving a talk to a group of 17, 18-year-olds about my life as a 17, 18-year-old and a little bit older, and how the music, what it meant at the time. This kind of explosion in dance music. That really was really the beginning of something in Britain that carries on to this day. It was so important. So. I think all the work around British identity is definitely me attempting to understand it, because it's still not clear, which is probably why it's good to work in it. Maybe because I don't understand it either, so I'm trying to work it out for myself. I mean, a lot of work you make is really for yourself, even if it's some massive performance artwork or public artwork, you're still making something as an experiment or as an investigation or setting up a situation to try and understand something better. A lot of the time you don't even realize it. And I understand it as good as anyone else, really.